Two guys that do this for a living. Kyle Welter and Brian Murphy here after a 21-11 NC State win over Florida State to make the Pac bowl eligible. 11th time in 13 years, Brian, for Dave Doeren, which when you say that out loud, makes you maybe kind of step back a little bit for all the hate that he's kind of gotten from fans dating back to really the first game of the season versus ECU. And I think you can look at this game and this season in a couple different ways. You saw the best of the Pac in this one, but maybe it makes you also think of like, and why couldn't they just been a little bit more consistent if they're capable of this kind of a complete performance?
Yeah, 6 straight years of bowl eligibility. Lights going out on us over here. But, I think part of the problem is the injuries, right? This team has been banged up, especially on the defensive side, along the offensive line all year. And you saw it tonight. Dave Doeren said Jackson Vick, who faced that potential targeting ejection, said he didn't have anyone else to put in the game if Vick had been ejected from this game. But a guy like Devin Marshall steps up at corner. They put him on Deuce Richardson. 13 targets, only 4 catches. He had 6 pass breakups, 2 interceptions. A great individual effort by this defense to hold Florida State, a very explosive offense, to 11 points.
And I guess that's just kind of what's so puzzling about it in a way, Brian, because it comes a week after defense gives up, 41 points to Miami, and even going back to that Georgia Tech game, it's more of an offensive shootout. And the defense has been their Achilles heel all year. And for them to do this against Florida State, who, despite their record, which has been disappointing, their offense has been incredibly productive. They're averaging over 36 points per game. That's second in the ACC. They're second in yardage as well. And NC State had them completely frustrated all night. It's kind of hard to make sense of.
Yeah, outside of Tommy Castellano running the ball, their offense was non-existent. Florida State really struggled to get any rhythm. And I thought, Dave Doeren and the defensive staff did a heck of a job limiting them, particularly in the second half. There was nowhere for Castellano to run, and so that was pretty much the end of the offense. Now, they got some breaks. Look, Florida State missed 2 field goals, turned the ball over a couple times, and then, when it looked like when the Seminoles might get the ball back with a chance to win this game, twice they muffed punts onto one of the most bizarre plays you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean, kind of an interesting game from the standpoint of it was kind of a sleepy night, right? It's 7-3 at the half. You get the Friday night crowd. Everyone's like amped, but the kind of pace of the game didn't lend itself to like a great crowd atmosphere necessarily. But then there at the end, you're right, it's 14-11. And all of a sudden you're kind of looking at it, you're like, oh man, like how many opportunities is NC State going to have to put this away? And they're not going to do it. And the punt comes back to the punter. I mean, I filmed the game, right? I didn't even film that punt because, like, what are the odds it's going to be, like, something I need to show? Of course it was. It goes straight back to Newcaster.
Hit off a Florida State player's helmet, goes back 30 yards, and the punter, who Dave Doeren says is the only guy on the team who doesn't want to get hit, comes in and says it was his old goalie soccer slide, comes in, grabs the punt. Then they go 3 and out basically again and have to punt, and the Florida State returner muffs it. And at that point, NC State finally took advantage of all the gifts they've been given, scored on 4th down, and put this game away.
Yeah, and I'm sure NC State fans in their heads were thinking like, oh, here we go again. Dave Doeren turtling here down the stretch. And then he pulls out the card where they go off for the field goal on 4th and 6, call the timeout, and then they go for it. And I'm like, oh, is this the right call? Because at that point it's 14-11. I mean, I guess to get it out of field goal's reach, especially, the way the defense had played, I don't know. I could see it either way, but he said in the postgame that he was always going to go for it, that he was just trying to get them to jump off sides to make it 4th and 1, which in 4th and 3rd and short, they've been excellent all night with the Will Wilson package. But what a call. And Dave Doeren really in his element right now, right? Like kind of calling out reporters in the postgame, and maybe the ultimate mic drop at the end, Brian. Now, we don't know what was in the cup, but the postgame is a Zoom for people that don't necessarily watch the postgame press conferences, which is a little different than some of the other ones that we do in the area. We're still on Zoom here, and he goes, expect a crazy crowd versus UNC next week, picks up the solo cup, cheers, walks off. What do you think was in that cup?
I think it was certainly a beverage, a frosty beverage. He says, just a lot of great one-liners from Dave. They said, scared money don't make money. They went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 30. early in the game when it was 7-3, early in the second half. They picked that up, go on a long drive, convert that into a touchdown. He talks about the crowd on Friday next week. He talks about cheers. He said there is no quit here to one of the reporters. And I think that kind of sums up NC State football. This is a season that's been up and down. Even CJ Bailey's play has been up and down. The defense has been up and down. A lot of rumors about Dave Doran's future. And there is no quit here. I think kind of defines what Dave Doran has built this program around.
And I guess it's decision time, right? Or it's about to be for Boot Corrigan and for Dave Doran and for this program going forward. And I could see it a couple different ways. This is a team that started 3-0, showed a lot of promise, then lost 5 of 7 games to get them in this point here where they're 500 going into this game versus Florida State with rival UNC in the finale. And you felt like they needed to at least beat UNC to give him a chance to keep his job. And it's not like he's done a bad job. I mean, he's bowl eligible now for the 11th time in 13 years, but sometimes things run their course. We just saw it with James Franklin. But then you see the Georgia Tech win. You see the fans storming the field. You see the way he could get his team not to quit after a brutal loss at Miami. And now they got UNC coming in here next. I mean, how do you not bring him back if he blows out Bill Belichick or just beats him in his final game?
Yeah, a couple things. Like this game was sold out, the UNC game was sold out. So even though there's a vocal minority of fans, I think, online, on social media that talk about being tired of Dave Doran, that's not manifesting itself here in the stadium. People are still showing up. They're still cheering for this team. They're bowl eligible again. If they beat Carolina, that'll be 5 straight years they've beaten North Carolina. Look at all the jobs that are open. Look at the pool of candidates. I don't think Boot Corrigan, NC State also has a new chancellor. I don't think they want to go through a coaching search. I think they want Dave Doran to make it easy on them, beat Carolina, be 7-5, start planning for next year. I don't think they want to get in the market of where you got to try to find a coach. You know, some of the numbers that are being thrown around for some of these coaches, I just don't think they want to get into that. And I think this win helps. And I think if Dave Doran and NC State take care of business, they'll be favored against Carolina next week. Then they'll make the decision really easy.
It feels like a year where maybe you just push the buck down the road a little bit. And maybe you take whatever like passion or money there is from donors and fans, and can you invest it into next year's roster? Because I don't know that the problem for Dave Doran and NC State has ever been coaching necessarily. I mean, obviously there's things you can nitpick, but I think it's a pretty well accepted fact that NC State's playing with a shorter deck than at least Carolina, and in some regards, maybe even, I don't know this for a fact, but I know what Darian Mentz is making at the quarterback position, so Duke's got a lot of money too. So I think maybe that's the path forward. Like in a year where there's openings at LSU and Penn State and Florida, maybe this is a year to push it down and see what Dave Doran could do in year 14.
And we've seen that in other places. Baylor announced that they're bringing their coach back and they're going to invest in the program. Wisconsin is having a terrible season, announced they're bringing their coach back and they're going to invest in the program. I think that's a smart move right now at this point in college football. You don't want to pay a huge buyout, a huge salary to bring the next guy in and his staff in, and then, whoa, you still got to find money to pay your players. So I think if athletic directors at this point can stick with the guy they have and invest that money in the program, I think we're going to see more and more coaches, more and more athletic departments do that, especially given the number of openings and the volume of Penn State and Florida and LSU and Auburn and maybe a few more big ones coming open as well.
And we're going to have quite an environment here next weekend.
He's already calling baby blue. He's already calling for the fans. I think, you know, I was at Bill Belichick's presser and he talked about the rivalry with Duke, and I'm not sure it's sunk in to Bill Belichick, who, if you look at it from the outside, it feels like Duke is Carolina's rival. But we all know that in football, this game matters the most to Carolina fans and NC State fans. I'm not sure Bill Belichick has quite grasped that yet. And the thought of him coming in here at 7:30 on the Saturday after Thanksgiving and what this environment is going to be like, I think is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, and some of the things the fans were chanting at Florida State tonight, I can't wait to see what they come up with next weekend for Bill Belichick and the Tar Heels, who have lost 4 straight to NC State. So there was a fan a couple weeks ago that had 6'7". No one does 6'7" quite like Dave Doran. Well, How about 5 straight potentially versus UNC? So for Brian Murphy, I'm Pat Welter. This has been Triangle and 2.